The third year of capturing Liu Ruyan's heart, I successfully became his white moonlight. He loved me madly like an obsession. During a kidnapping incident, the kidnappers threatened to cripple his legs if he didn't comply. At that moment, Liu Ruyan didn't hesitate. From that point on, the proud daughter of heaven became disabled. I could no longer bear to leave this world. Before the system left me, it granted me a special ability. That ability was to hear Liu Ruyan's inner thoughts. But on our 7th wedding anniversary, I jumped from the 28th floor without any hesitation. The most shocking and major news in Jinhai City recently was that Liu's group president, Wei Bo, her husband, was overjoyed. Spending a fortune at the auction, winning a custom-made luxury car worth over $1 billion. Liu Ruyan and I had been married for 7 years. Our love stronger than gold. We were extremely affectionate, a model of love for the entire city of Jinhai. At that moment, he was sitting on the sofa, renting out the entire dealership to accompany me for a test drive. The many staff members waiting outside during my break couldn't help but lower their voices and gossip. Mr. Gu just drove in. It's the one from the news. That car, the luxury one custom designed by a world-renowned car designer. The quality of that design really is top-notch. Mr. Gu really is blessed. How did he manage to make President Liu fall so deeply in love with him? President Liu not only has good looks, but also a great figure. Over the years, how many? Mr. Liu repeated it emphatically. Look at Mr. Gu, who has been trying out cars for so long. He is still so focused. He gives feedback on every car he drives. Any other woman would have lost patience by now. Someone raised a doubt. Could it really be possible for a woman to remain so completely devoted to a man? You don't believe in the 7-yearage, do you? So Mr. Gu and Mr. Liu, now they're about to celebrate 7 years of marriage. Do you think they'll survive the 7-year mark? As the crowd continued speaking, they boldly began to entertain some thoughts. It's rare to have such an opportunity to get close. Liu Ruyan proactively suggested pouring him some water. As she got closer to Liu Ruyan, he deliberately twisted his ankle. His whole body toppled into Liu Ruyan's arms. Liu Ruyan was quick-witted. She frowned. Annoyed, she quickly stepped aside. The person stumbled and fell heavily to the ground, looking at him with his malicious gaze. A trace of disgust flashed in Liu Ruyan's eyes. He turned to wave at the bodyguard beside him. Take care of him. The bodyguard immediately stepped forward and dragged the person away. Even so, he still seemed unsatisfied. He actually took off his coat and ordered the security guard to bring him a new one. Muttering to himself, waiting for Zia Baiken to see. Will he think I'm dirty? Will he refuse to hug me? The crowd watching dared not respond. Otherwise, why would he be so humble? As I came out of the fitting room, I happened to see the scene in front of me. I stood there, my gaze a bit dazed. Yes, Liu Ruyan loved me so much. It was obvious to everyone. No matter when, he always gave me a sense of security. I didn't like the taste of alcohol, so he never attended any social gatherings again. He completely abstained from drinking. He even gave up the relocation project for this. He didn't want me to feel jealous. He never looked at other men directly. His eyes were only for me. Even if another man greeted him, he would carefully apologize to me, fearing that I might stop loving him. When the elders of the Liu family opposed our relationship, he used every possible means to make everyone see that he couldn't live without me. It was because of his intense love and sincere devotion that I was willing to give up everything and stay by his side. No one knew that I wasn't from this world. A few years ago, I died in my original world. I was bound to a system that transported me into this world. The system told me that only by successfully capturing Liu Ruyan's heart could I be resurrected in my original world. All these years of interaction and effort, my strategy finally made me Liu Ruyan's white moonlight. I made him love me passionately, obsessively. In the kidnapping incident 7 years ago, I was kidnapped by Liu Ruyan's greatest enemy. The kidnapper threatened him to cripple me. Only then did he let me go. At that time, Liu Ruyan, without hesitation, he crippled his own legs. Blood flowed like a river. He almost lost half his life. From that moment, the once proud man became a cripple. From now on, he could only use a wheelchair. At that moment, my strategy was completely successful. But facing Liu Ruyan, who loved me more than his own life, I hesitated. I couldn't bear to leave this world anymore. I couldn't bear to leave Liu Ruyan. Before the system disappeared, it asked me two questions. Had I truly decided to stay in this world? If Liu Ruyan ever revived me, what would I do? At that moment, I looked at Liu Ruyan, who loved me so deeply, and nodded vigorously. I decided to stay. But for the second question, I didn't answer, because subconsciously, I couldn't imagine the woman who was willing to cripple her own legs for me, and how I would face her after that day. The system completely vanished then. It never appeared again. All these years, Liu Ruyan indeed loved me deeply. Everything was prioritized for me. To be loved so intensely, everyone thought I must be incredibly happy. I should be smiling. But at this moment, no matter what, I just couldn't bring myself to smile. I hid my emotions. I slowly walked out. Liu Ruyan lifted his gaze to look at me. His cold eyes instantly turned gentle and tender, like water. His gaze was focused, only allowing room for me. We headed to the restaurant. We had made a reservation at, but I kept feeling restless. She hurriedly apologized to me. Baiken was upset. I didn't let him touch me just now. Please don't ignore me, okay? I didn't respond. Liu Ruyan grew more and more anxious. What's going on recently? Why do I always feel like you're unhappy? Is it because I've been too busy with work and didn't spend time with you? I'm sorry, I've been busy with a project recently. It'll be over soon, and then I can focus on being with you. I slowly raised my eyes. My gaze was still calm and indifferent. Liu Ruyan, is there really nothing you want to say to me? Liu Ruyan was unsure why I suddenly asked this. She paused for a moment and subconsciously fidgeted with her fingers. That was her nervous habit. I saw it all, but she still shook her head. No! My heart ached faintly, but I didn't press further. Later, the waiter brought over the cake Liu Ruyan had pre-ordered. It was time for me to blow out the candles and make a wish. Today was not my birthday. It was just that over the years we've been together, on all the little holidays and anniversaries, Liu Ruyan would always make sure to create a sense of ritual for me. As I closed my eyes and made a wish after the lights went out, the peaceful space was suddenly interrupted by the sound of a vibrating phone. I opened my eyes. I happened to see Liu Ruyan unlocking her phone. She was checking the message that had come in. In the dark restaurant, the reflection of the glass allowed me to clearly see the message on the screen. Liu Ruyan, there's someone outside with disheveled hair. Then I saw Liu Ruyan frown deeply. The hand holding the phone was trembling. In the next moment, Liu Ruyan's thoughts echoed in my ears. What a little boy! He's scared by even the slightest disturbance. Forget it, I'll go take a look. After all, he's always making a fuss about everything. My face remained unchanged, but my heart clenched tightly. No one knew. Before the system disappeared, it had granted me one ability. That was the ability to hear Liu Ruyan's thoughts. For all these years, he had only ever thought of me. But up until 3 months ago, his heart started to frequently utter the name of a boy, Fu Xingzhao, the younger brother of his best friend. He had just graduated from university. Only recently did he start working at his company for training. Before I could react, His thoughts once again rang out. But today is the 7th anniversary. Would it be inappropriate to leave now? As he hesitated, the phone screen lit up once more. Fu Xingzhao sent a few more messages. He didn't say a word. He only sent a few emoticons, pouting, acting cute, and crying. This time, Liu Ruyan could no longer sit still. He quickly snapped the phone shut and told me there was an urgent matter at the company waiting for him to handle. Liu Ruyan had never lied to me. But ever since Fu Xingzhao appeared, his lies started to pile up, one after another. My heart had never been so flustered before. I tried to summon the system. I wanted to see how much Liu Ruyan's love for me remained, how much of it was left. But no matter how much I called out, the system didn't respond to me at all. It was then that I realized, since I chose to stay in this world, the system had completely disappeared. When I decided to stay, I had bet that Liu Ruyan's love would never let me lose. But now I no longer dared to be so sure. That night, I didn't sleep well. In the middle of the night, a sudden thunderstorm broke out. From behind me, 2 arms reached out and tightly held me. I didn't know when, but Liu Ruyan had already returned, probably to avoid waking me. His movements were very gentle. It wasn't until now that I realized he knew that I was most afraid of these thunderstorm nights. So even though I was fast asleep, he would still instinctively pull me into his embrace, whispering, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Turning to look at the woman in my arms, her face soft and beautiful in her sleep, my heart sank into deep thought again. Could a love this deep really fall for someone else? Could it? I held Liu Ruyan tightly, burying my head into the crook of her neck. But the next second, I saw it. A large, bright red hickey on her neck. In the morning, Liu Ruyan woke up. Only then did he realize that I was no longer by his side. His heart jolted inexplicably. He didn't even have time to put on his coat. He rushed out in a hurry. After searching for a while, he finally found me in the garden. Hearing the noise, I slowly turned my head. It seemed like Liu Ruyan had tripped. He, who always had a cleanliness obsession, now had his pajamas covered in dust. His face was filled with worrying and panic. Ever since I was kidnapped, Liu Ruyan had been even more unable to leave my side. As soon as he opened his eyes and couldn't see me, he would be filled with anxiety. When he saw that I was safe, he immediately rushed to me. He threw himself into my arms. "Baiken, don't ever suddenly disappear from my sight again." All worrying, he rested his head on my shoulder, and I heard his thoughts echoing in my mind. "Thank goodness Baiken is alright. If anything happens to him again, I won't be able to live either." My heart tightened. I slowly lifted my head. "What's this red mark on your neck?" Liu Ruyan's hand unconsciously reached up to touch the red mark. He paused slightly, then he explained, "It must be a mosquito bite." I bitterly tugged at the corner of my mouth. It's already autumn. Are there still mosquitoes? Seeing the hollow look in my eyes, Liu Ruyan finally came to his senses. "So all these days you've been unhappy because you were afraid of me?" Before he could finish his sentence, he pulled me directly into his arms. "Baiken, in this life, I will only love you. If my heart has someone else in it, may thunder strike me from the heavens, and may I never die peacefully." Hearing such a resolute vow, I still couldn't bring myself to cover his mouth. "Don't say it anymore, I believe you." I looked at him, my gaze firm and sincere. "Ruyan, if one day you truly fall in love with someone else, you must tell me. I won't pester you. But if you lie to me, you'll never see me again in this lifetime." Liu Ruyan's body trembled involuntarily. He held me even tighter. "It won't happen, Baiken. My heart has only you in it. I can't lose you. You must never leave me." Alright, he pressed his forehead tightly against my chest. I wanted to say something more, but all I could hear was those words. I sighed inwardly. Maybe I was overthinking it. But before I could feel relieved, Liu Ruyan actually brought Fuxing Zhao straight home. He held on to me and calmly explained, Baiken, Xing Zhao's lease has expired, and he hasn't found a place to stay yet. So he'll stay with us for a few days. I promised my best friend I would look after him. We can't let him end up on the streets. My body felt a little cold. My gaze unconsciously fell on the custom luxury car, which was identical to mine, just like my father's. The only difference was that the custom letters on our cars were different. The host had said that this luxury car was the only one of its kind in the world. That's why it had fetched a staggering price of 100 million at the auction. Now, she was driving the exact same car. This meant that one of our cars was a fake. Liu Ruyan clearly noticed it too. Her expression immediately darkened. It was Fuxing Zhao who spoke up first. Brother Chen, don't misunderstand. I just saw your luxury car on the news and it looked really cool. So I asked Ruyan to have a replica made for me. I'm just driving it for fun. Although he said this, my heart still felt heavy. It was as if a large stone was pressing down on it, making it hard to breathe. But even so, Fuxing Zhao still half-jokingly, half-seriously looked at Liu Ruyan. He asked, Ruyan, do you think it's more appropriate for me to drive this luxury car, or for Yanhuai to drive it? Liu Ruyan froze for a moment, then suddenly threw herself into my arms. She lifted her head and smiled at me. Of course, my Baiken looks the best. Fuxing Zhao followed with a wry smile, but quietly lowered his head. He seemed somewhat disappointed. Now in my arms, I could hear his thoughts. Hey, don't feel wronged. Before Baiken, I can only say it this way. The moment I heard this, my body involuntarily trembled. I lifted my head. And just in time, I caught Liu Ruyan's gaze directed at Fuxing Zhao. It seemed like she felt the intensity of his stare. Fuxing Zhao smiled and curved his lips. At this moment, his thoughts echoed once again. You're the one driving the authentic custom-made luxury car. Of course, it's your handsomeness that stands out. I felt as if I had been struck hard. I couldn't gather my thoughts for a long time. I returned to my room, staring at myself in the mirror. I kept asking myself, was everything that happened just now real? Did I mishear it? How could Liu Ruyan say something like that? It must have been a misunderstanding. I could only tell myself that over and over again. In the days that followed, Fuxing Zhao almost always went out with Liu Ruyan. They came home together. He worked at Liu Ruyan's company, and it was completely normal for him to drive her to and from work. But every time I saw them walking together, it felt like an invisible pair of hands was choking me by the neck, suffocating me with pressure. It seemed like, to reassure me, Liu Ruyan always kept her distance from Fuxing Zhao at home. Even when they spoke, it was cold and distant. But Fuxing Zhao, whether intentionally or not, would always show up whenever Liu Ruyan and I were alone. He would sit beside me while we watched a movie, purposefully holding the popcorn. When we had a candlelit dinner, he would conveniently appear in the restaurant. When we went to the rooftop to watch fireworks, he'd be standing behind us with a camera, claiming to capture this beautiful moment for us. Liu Ruyan could have sent him away, but she only smiled and let it pass. She silently allowed his presence. I felt completely exhausted, but Liu Ruyan just smiled it off. She silently accepted his presence. I felt utterly exhausted. I didn't want to be a husband who constantly suspected others, but every time I looked at the way they looked at each other, I felt a pain in my chest that I couldn't put into words. That night, I suddenly ran a fever. I curled up under the blankets, feeling as though my body was set on fire. The heat was so intense. It was frightening. Liu Ruyan was extremely anxious. She held ice packs and kept trying to cool me down. Every 10 minutes, she would hold me, feeding me medicine to bring my fever down. I was dizzy from the fever. instinctively avoiding the cup she held to my lips. Seeing me in this state, Liu Ruyan didn't show the slightest impatience. Instead, she gently coaxed, "Baiken, be good. Take the medicine and you'll feel better." I lowered my body, resting my head on her chest, listening to the strong beat of her heart. I struggled to open my eyes. I met her affectionate gaze. "Good boy, take the medicine and go back to sleep. I'll stay here with you." I opened my mouth with difficulty and drank the medicine she fed me. Only then did I lie back down on the bed. She held my hand tightly, gently soothing my palm with light strokes. In the quiet room, I heard her thoughts once again. "Baiken, go to sleep. Qingxiao has had a car accident. We don't know how bad it is yet. I need to go check on him quickly." I looked at Liu Ruyan in disbelief. I just happened to see him take out his phone, turning his back to me as he replied to a message. The worrying and tension in his eyes seemed almost ready to spill out of his gaze. But it was all for someone else. My eyes uncontrollably stung sharply. I hurriedly shut them, not wanting him to see my reddened eyes. A moment later, Liu Ruyan came to my side, gently calling my name a few times. When I didn't respond, he let out a sigh of relief. Then he quickly left. At that moment, my heart felt like it was being torn apart. In despair, I opened my eyes. Tears immediately flowed down like pearls from a broken string. The phone by my pillow suddenly flashed. I sat up, opened the screen, and saw a message from Fuxing Zhao. "Yanhui, take a look at Ryan's phone. You'll be in for a surprise." I turned my head and looked at Liu Ruyan's phone, which had been left on the desk. A wave of unease surged within me. I knew this was a trap, but for some reason, I couldn't resist swiping the screen. Liu Ruyan's phone password had always been my birthday, so I easily unlocked it. The pinned chat was with me. The profile picture was a photo of the two of us together. All the chat background images were also pictures of me. But within those conversation threads, Fuxing Zhao's name stood out, glaring and obvious. After hesitating for a long time, I finally, trembling, opened their chat window. Step by step, I uncovered the truth. They had only added each other on WeChat a few months ago, but the chat history was unusually long. It took me quite a while to scroll to the very beginning. The first message was from Fuxing Zhao, right after he added her on WeChat. He had taken the initiative to send it. "Hello, Ryan. I'm Fu Wanwan's younger brother. Please take care of me from now on." A few moments later, he sent several cutesy emojis with heart symbols. It took Liu Ruyan several days to reply. Her tone was cold and distant. "Don't send these kinds of things. My husband doesn't like it." Fuxing Zhao sent an emoji of a pitiful face. And then there was no further communication. In the days that followed, Fuxing Zhao continued to send Liu Ruyan cute, flirty emojis, but Liu Ruyan never replied to him. When he tried messaging her on WeChat, he was completely ignored. Till one day, Liu Ruyan surprisingly took the initiative to message him. "I was drunk yesterday. Let's pretend nothing happened. How much do you want? Give me a number. Just don't let Baiken find out. Otherwise, I won't let you off." Fuxing Zhao hesitated for a moment, but then he sent a photo of his ABS. "Ryan, I'm younger than Chen Heng. I'm more fresh. Don't you like it? But if you really don't like it, why were you so seductive last night? You begged me so passionately for my affection. Your body is covered in marks I left." Normally, Liu Ruyan would have responded to such behavior with harsh insults and scolding. But this time, she said nothing. From then on, the two of them developed a fixed relationship. In countless moments that I could think of, Liu Ruyan was always with Fuxing Zhao. Every time she left me, the birthday party, the late arrival, the sudden departure on our 7th anniversary, the postponed trip we had planned, and that luxury car that was identical to mine. Fuxing Zhao had mentioned more than once in front of him how much he liked that car. Ryan, I really love this car so much. Please, just let me drive it once. At first, Liu Ruyan had coldly refused. Buy another one. Just let me drive this one, Fu Xingzhao insisted. Others can drive it too. But he didn't give up. No, I want this one. The one and only in the world. Chen Heng has driven it for so long. So what's the big deal if I get to drive it for once? Finally, Liu Ruyan relented. I'll bring it to you tonight. I tightly gripped my phone. My face as pale as if struck by lightning. Tears fell one by one onto the screen. I felt like my heart had been ripped out. My whole body trembled uncontrollably. I couldn't believe it. During all this time, while I waited countless times for him to come home, planning our future, or while I was sound asleep, he had been entangled with another man. But this was Liu Ruyan, the one who loved me deeply in front of everyone, the one who promised to love me for a lifetime behind closed doors. As I repeatedly scrolled through those explicit chat records, my heart hurt so much it felt like it would tear apart. Suddenly, I clutched my chest, the pain almost suffocating me. The next moment, everything went dark before my eyes. I completely lost consciousness. I didn't know how long I had been unconscious. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital, seeing the person beside me. Liu Ruyan's face was filled with anxiety. My heart began to twist painfully again. The sharp pain returned. Every word he had spoken to Fu Xingzhao, and all the emotions I had endured, felt like knives, piercing deeply into my chest. At the first sight of him, tears suddenly fell. I opened my mouth, but found that I couldn't say a single word. The pain felt like it was killing me. I clutched my chest, biting my lip in desperation. Silent tears streamed down my face. Seeing me like this, Liu Ruyan froze in shock. He hurriedly called the doctor over, then pulled me tightly into his arms. Baiken, where does it hurt? Don't be afraid, I'm here. I'll stay with you. The entire hospital's medical staff surrounded the bed, nervously performing tests on me. After a series of diagnoses, the doctor finally reached a conclusion. Mr. Gu has suffered severe emotional trauma, which has led to aphasia. He stiffened, his eyes flashing with dark light. Who hurt Baiken? He immediately called for his assistant. He demanded that the assistant search the entire city to find the person who had hurt me. The assistant hurried out. The hospital room was once again left with only the two of us. I was held tightly in his arms, but no matter what comforting words he spoke, I remained unmoved. I just silently cried. Like ink spilled on paper, Liu Ruyan was frantic with worrying. He held me tightly, constantly comforting me. What's wrong? Please tell me. Who hurt you? I will make them pay 100 times for what they did to you. I silently shed tears, biting my lip until it bled. The one who hurt me the most was the one I loved the most. In the following days, Liu Ruyan canceled all his work, devoting himself completely to taking care of me at the hospital. I remained the same. Not crying, not smiling, and still not speaking. Liu Ruyan, recalling that I used to love the dim sum from Chengnan when I had no appetite, personally drove out to buy it for me. During this time, Fu Xingzhao unexpectedly showed up. It seemed that my current condition was just what he wanted. He smiled and placed a bouquet of lilac on my bedside, with a proud look on his face. Chenjie, I bought your favorite lilac. You must be wondering why I know you like lilac. Because my favorite flowers are the same as yours. So every time Liu Ruyan buys you flowers, she buys me the exact same ones. Recalling how Liu Ruyan would come home every night with flowers in hand, I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. I looked up at Fu Xingzhao, only to see him still looking smug and pleased with himself. Chenjie, you and Liu Ruyan have been together for 7 years. I suddenly felt a wave of nausea in my stomach. I looked up at Fu Xingzhao, only to see him still looking smug and self-satisfied. Shenjie, you've been with Liu Ruyan for 7 years. No matter how much you love her, you must have gotten tired of her by now. Such an outstanding woman like Liu Ruyan? How much he likes novelty. Liu Ruyan said, compared to you, she still prefers me in bed. Each word was provocative and heartless, striking my heart heavily. I trembled all over, clenching my fists tightly, not even noticing how my nails dug deep into my skin. Fu Xingzhao still looked as carefree as ever. He took out his phone from his pocket, found a few photos, and handed them to me. NJ, take a look. Does Liu Ruyan do all this with you in private? I tried desperately to look away, but my gaze still uncontrollably shifted to the screen, and when I clearly saw the entwined bodies on the screen, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I collapsed on the bedside, gagging. After Fu Xingzhao left, I went crazy, smashing everything in the hospital room to pieces. With my eyes red, I threw everything I could see within my reach heavily onto the ground. When Liu Ruyan pushed open the door, all he saw was a scene of devastation, and me standing barefoot on the broken glass. With bloodshot eyes, he looked like he was facing a great enemy. He immediately rushed forward, trying to hold me in his arms. The broken glass shards were deeply embedded in my flesh. Blood spilled everywhere, but I acted as if I couldn't feel the pain at all. But it felt as though I couldn't feel the pain at all. I just coldly stared at him. Liu Ruyan was panicking like never before. He tried to hold me, but I struggled desperately. I gripped his arm tightly. Finally, I broke down in tears. I want to go home. Let me go home. After 7 days, I finally spoke my first words. Liu Ruyan was overjoyed. He quickly supported me. Home. I'll take you home right now. I helplessly let go of his arm, letting the tears flow freely. I no longer have a home I wanted to return to. I can't go back to. I gave up everything for him. Now I don't even have a place to stay. I don't know how I ended up like this. I don't understand either. We were so deeply in love. Everything was going smoothly, happily, toward the future. Our future was almost clearly laid out. It was so bright, so clear in front of us. As long as we kept moving forward, we would have a happy ending. So why did everything suddenly stop halfway? Why did he take another man's hand? When we returned home, Fu Xingzhao was still there. He was sitting in the living room, acting like the man of the house. He was drinking my favorite coffee from my cup. My face instantly darkened. I trembled as I looked at Liu Ruyan, struggling to control my emotions. Let him leave. Now! Liu Ruyan didn't expect me to suddenly make such a demand. He seemed hesitant for a moment. Before he could say anything, I interrupted him without hesitation. If he doesn't leave, I will. You're the man of the house. Where do you want to go? After saying this, he looked at Fu Xingzhao. Baiken doesn't want you to stay here. You should leave. Fu Xingzhao didn't argue. He just glanced at Liu Ruyan, then turned and went upstairs. He grabbed his suitcase and left. Only after seeing him leave did I go upstairs. Then I slammed the door shut, locking myself in the room. Liu Ruyan softly knocked on the door, rather than being humble and trying to please. Baiken, if something's wrong, talk to me, okay? Don't keep it inside. Haven't you always wanted to go to the Maldives? Tomorrow, we'll fly there on a private jet. I'll stay with you for a month. Baiken, I personally cook your favorite sweet and sour ribs. Come out and try one bite. Just try one bite, okay? But no matter what Liu Ruyan said, no matter how much he begged or tried to comfort me, I didn't say a word. I ignored him completely. Outside the door, Liu Ruyan was frantic. His voice, filled with anxiety, came through the door. Baiken, what's wrong with you? Why are you not eating or drinking? What if your body deteriorates? If it means that Baiken will eat, I'd be willing to give up a few years of my life. Baiken, are you trying to kill me with worrying? I leaned against the door, weakly collapsing to the ground. Why? I collapsed weakly onto the floor. Why does he, despite clearly loving me so deeply, still do such things? Betray me, hurt me. Can a person's heart really be this torn? Can a person really hold space for two? A few days later, I opened the door alone. I stepped into the yard to get some fresh air. It seemed like Liu Ruyan had gone out. The entire villa was quiet. I could even hear the sound of a needle dropping on the floor. I looked at the garden full of lily. For the first time, I found that the scent of lily was so repulsive. These flowers were all personally planted by Liu Ruyan for me. He had gathered the best lily seeds from all over the world. The swing set by the wall was something we built together. He said that when we had children, he would push the child on the swing. The fence was carefully smoothed by craftsmen. It was just because one night, I accidentally scratched myself on the fence when I came out. He said he didn't want me to suffer even a little bit of harm, as long as I liked it. He would even pick the stars from the sky and give them to me. What is real? What is fake? Admiring me was real. Being kind to me was real. Spoiling me to the bone was real. But betraying me was real too. I didn't want to face the lily in the garden anymore. I was about to turn and leave. At that moment, a car's headlights shone through the trees from a distance. The car stopped 50 meters from the door. Moments later, Liu Ruyan and Fu Xingzhao got out of the car together. He walked with ease. His legs were clearly just as normal as anyone else's. I was suddenly struck by a thunderbolt. When did Liu Ruyan's legs recover? I didn't even know. I stood there, stunned, watching helplessly as Fu Xingzhao walked up to him. They intimately hooked their arms around each other. Ruyan, stay with me a little longer. Liu Ruyan raised an eyebrow slightly. Was that not enough just now? Fu Xingzhao shyly lowered his head. Like a kitten, he rubbed his chin against Liu Ruyan. He asked knowingly, Ruyan, anyway, Chenjie isn't coming out of his room now. Why don't I stay here with you tonight? How about it? Mentioning me. Liu Ruyan's expression instantly darkened. He coldly pulled Fu Xingzhao's arm away. His words carried a hint of frost. Stop talking about North Chen. I'm warning you. Stay away from him from now on. If you dare let North Chen know about us, you know what the consequences are. Fu Xingzhao stuck out his tongue. Don't get angry, I was just mentioning it. I'm just saying. I took step by step, slowly retreating. Then in panic, I ran back to my room. I covered my mouth, holding back tears, desperately trying not to cry out loud. Why is he doing this to me? What else is he hiding from me? I don't understand. What exactly does Liu Ruyan want? Why hide from me the fact that his legs were already healed? Is it just to keep me with him, so I'll never leave? I stayed because of his sincerity, but I never expected even that sincerity was a lie. One by one, event after event, it completely destroyed my defenses, leaving me utterly shattered. I regret it so much. I regret falling in love with Liu Ruyan. I regret staying in this unfamiliar world for him. My heart hurts unbearably. I clutch my chest, feeling as though I'm about to drown in the abyss, just as I'm about to collapse. I suddenly remember the gift the system left me before it vanished. The system said that if I ever regretted it, I could open that gift. I rushed like a madman to the cabinet, immediately tearing everything out. Finally, on the bottom shelf of the cabinet, I found the gift the system had left for me. I opened the package. Inside, there was only one line of text. Don't bet your heart on a woman. You will never win. Host, if you regret it and want to go back, there's only one last way. Late at night, I climbed up to the rooftop alone. It was already early winter. The cold wind felt especially chilling. I stood at the edge of the roof, Looking at the dazzling lights below, and the tiny streams of traffic and trees in the distance, I couldn't help but think of the system's words. Place yourself in a life or death situation and only then can you be reborn. If I jump from here, will I return to the original world? Or disappear completely? I don't know. The only thing I know for sure is, no matter what my fate is, I will never see Liu Ruyan again. I took my phone out of my pocket. I dialed the number I had long since memorized. The call was quickly answered. Liu Ruyan's voice was still as gentle as ever. "Baiken, what's wrong?" I suddenly looked into the distance. My voice was light and airy. "Where are you now?" Liu Ruyan responded softly. His concern for me lingered in the rain. "I'm at the company. Are you feeling better? Did you eat well today?" I pulled at the corner of my mouth. My face still held a faint, distant affection. I suddenly craved the red bean cake from the outskirts. In the past, no matter how late it was, as long as I mentioned something I wanted to eat, even if he had already gone to bed, he would immediately go out and buy it for me. He would bring it right to me. Once it was in the middle of the night, and it had started snowing heavily, but still he braved the storm and drove for 3 hours straight just to bring me the food I craved. At that time, I was so heartbroken. I held his cold hands in mine, warming them up. I thought to myself, this lifetime, I can't love anyone but him. But now, on the other end of the phone, Liu Ruyan paused. Then he responded, "Baiken, today, the company has a lot of work. I need to stay at the office and won't be able to come back. But tomorrow morning, I'll buy it and bring it back to you." Okay. For the first time, I was so persistent, but now I just want to eat it. Liu Ruyan hesitated for a moment. "I really have something important to attend to. I can't leave right now." "How much do you want to eat tomorrow?" "I'll bring back exactly that much." As soon as the words fell, a faint, soft sound came from the other end of the phone. Though it was barely audible, I could still immediately tell it was Fu Xingzhao's voice. Like a smoker trying to cover up a cough, he hurriedly cleared his throat. On my end of the call, I couldn't help but bitterly laugh, tears welling up in my eyes. These 7 years of deep affection, in the end, I had given them to the wrong person. I wiped away my tears with my hand, and my gaze suddenly grew firm and resolute. I don't need it anymore. From now on, I don't want to eat it. With those words, I hung up the phone abruptly. My gaze was distant, staring at the dazzling lights of thousands of homes before me. This is not my world. Once I had fantasized about a world filled with countless lights, where one of those lights would shine for Liu Ruyan and me. But now, he personally destroyed all of it. From this moment on, Liu Ruyan, you and I will never meet again in life or death. I slowly spread my arms. The next second, a loud crash echoed through the entire building. The following day, Liu Ruyan suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. He didn't know why, but there was always this bad feeling gnawing at him. He pushed away the man beside him, whose body was covered in kiss marks. In a hurry, he put on his clothes and rushed out. Behind him, Fu Xingzhao, pushing a wheelchair, chased after him. A trace of jealousy hid on his face. "Seeing you in such a rush. You even forgot to put on makeup. I really envy you, Chenjie. To make him marry you. You even came up with the trick of looking like a mess. When did? Only when I'm in your heart can I be that important." Liu Ruyan's lips, as thin as a knife's edge, curved into an arc. If it were usual, seeing Fu Xingzhao jealous and acting spoiled, he would have blushed by now. But thinking back to last night, to that somewhat inexplicable phone call I had, an inexplicable unease filled his heart. How could he still care about Fu Xingzhao's feelings? He coldly took the wheelchair and got in the car, heading straight for the pastry shop on the outskirts of town. After buying my favorite red bean cake, he rushed back home. As soon as he opened the door, he couldn't help but call my name. "Baiken, I bought your favorite red bean cake." But after calling a few times, There was no response from inside. Only when he pushed the door open was he stunned by the scene before him. The entire floor of the room was scattered with papers. When he picked one up, he realized it was full of his and Fu Xingzhao's chat logs. There were also explicit intimate photos of the two of them in bed. At that moment, he felt as if struck by lightning. Who put this here, Baiken? He knew it. The golden statue had been cruelly bent. In a panic, he fumbled for his phone in his pocket. When he found my number, his whole body was trembling. But when he dialed, the phone was already turned off. Liu Ruyan was completely panicked. He couldn't even imagine what my reaction and the consequences would be after finding out about all this. He dialed over and over again the number that had long been shut off. It was almost maddening. At that moment, a number suddenly called in. He hurriedly pressed the call button, barely able to see the number clearly. Before putting the phone to his ear, his tone was almost pleading. Baiken, don't leave me. I can explain. There was a brief silence on the other end of the phone. Before the voice replied, Mr. Liu, please accept our condolences. Mr. Gu fell from the rooftop last night. He was confirmed dead. Please come to the morgue to identify the body. Baiken is just throwing a tantrum. You're in on this, trying to trick me, right? You want him to answer the phone. Liu Ruyan was beside himself, frantic. Baiken, can you hear me? I'm sorry, but you can't lie to me like this, okay? The staff member was a little at a loss. He had worked in the funeral home for years and had seen many family members unable to accept the loss of their loved ones. But Liu Ruyan's reaction was clearly beyond his ability to handle. He tried to comfort him, though it sounded futile and helpless. You really need to come in person. The location is the funeral home. Please, just come. Who are you, really? Liu Ruyan couldn't hear my voice, his tone growing a little irritable. Are you trying to scam money from me? If you're kidnapping me, at least give me the phone to Baiken. I want to hear his voice. The keys wouldn't work for communication. The staff member could only try to calm Liu Ruyan down. If you come here, you'll be able to see him. Mr. Gu hung up the phone. The staff member sighed deeply and said to the mortician nearby, quickly, get everything ready. Make sure Mr. Gu's body is cleaned up properly. When he arrives, we won't be able to handle it. Where's the security? Arrange that too. Liu Ruyan looked at the phone in his hand, which had just made the sound of being hung up. He suddenly let out a strange laugh. He muttered to himself, such a clumsy lie. Baiken, you're really so stupid. Stupid enough to try to trick me this way. But a layer of grayish-white fog settled over his heart, and all the sounds from the outside world became hard to reach his ears. He stood there for a long time, the phone creaking under the pressure of his grip. Liu Ruyan murmured, wait until I find you. Baiken, I will apologize to you. I'm sorry, but you can't use this kind of thing to scare me. His eyes slowly reddened, and the veins beneath his skin turned purple. In a daze, he found himself at the door of the flower shop. The owner, who was already very familiar with him, smiled and said, Miss Liu, are you here to buy flowers for your husband? We just got a batch of the freshest and finest lilac today. Would you like some? Yes, he likes large, extravagant bouquets. Please make one for me. The owner moved quickly and soon handed the bouquet to Liu Ruyan. Mr. Gu is really lucky. Is today some special day? I'm here to apologize to him. Liu Ruyan tugged at the corner of his mouth. Forcing a smile, I made him angry. Well, as long as it's not a major problem. When he sees the bouquet, Mr. Gu will surely forgive you. Take care, Miss Liu. Liu Ruyan swiped his card. Maybe it was because he didn't see clearly, or perhaps he didn't even bother to check. He ended up paying over 10,000 yuan. When the shopkeeper heard the payment notification, He was so shocked that he ran after Liu Ruyan for a few steps. "Miss Liu, you paid the wrong amount." But Liu Ruyan had already walked far away. The shopkeeper couldn't catch up and could only helplessly say, "Just add the difference to his account." After all, Miss Liu always buys flowers for her husband here. Liu Ruyan walked nearly a kilometer before realizing just how much attention he was drawing. Many people along the roadside were quietly taking photos with their phones. Such a beautiful woman, holding a large bouquet of flowers, was simply the picture of envy. He forgot to drive, and the driver was on vacation, so he had no choice but to hail a taxi. The driver greeted him with a beaming smile. "Where to? Are you going to propose?" Liu Ruyan's dazed voice softly replied, "I'm going to apologize." The driver's face changed instantly. He awkwardly mumbled, "Please accept my condolences. Don't be too sad. He's not dead ... you know. He single quotes s ... But Liu Ruyan didn't want to explain to anyone, so he just smiled at the driver. "The traffic is heavy. He called me again. He wanted to hear my scolding and anger. Even if I slapped him, or if we argued about divorce." Liu Ruyan wasn't afraid. He would spend the rest of his life atoning. He would tell me that he truly knew he was wrong. I was so soft-hearted. One day, he would win me back. I could never bear to see him hurt. Countless ways to regret flashed through his mind. Suddenly, a glimmer of hopeful ambition arose. The lilac in his hand exuded a faint, delicate fragrance. Liu Ruyan thought to himself, there must be a way. The funeral home was large. It emitted the warm, industrial scent of a boiler in operation. He got out of the car. A trace of pity flickered in his eyes. I really like cleanliness. Liu Ruyan had always kept these little things in his mind. He was wrong. But it made me stay here. Whose punishment is this, really? Such a fool, not even choosing a more comfortable place. And using a more credible lie. He tried every possible way. After clearing away the unnecessary doubts in his heart, Liu Ruyan finally urged his reluctant feet to move forward one step. He saw the staff members dressed in black, and a flicker of pain crossed his face. He complained to the person beside him, "I really wish all those who commit suicide wouldn't choose to jump. It's just so hard to handle." His bones were completely shattered. There's such a huge hole in the back of his head. His brain matter is almost gone. We've only had one suicide from a jump these past few days. What's his name again? It's that very rich Liu Ruyan's husband. His name is Gu Baiken, right? Such a rich man, and yet he commits suicide. Liu Ruyan, in confusion, stared at them. After a moment, he came to his senses. He almost laughed out loud. He thinks I'm trying to trick him, that I've colluded with the staff here. A staff member with a somewhat familiar voice, gasping for breath, ran over. The company has a good reputation.